Rough Cut, Ready Dub 2.
Memories.
Meteors, Kinker,
GBH, like Exploited,
Crass,
Public Image,
Dead Pets,
The Damned,
UK Subs,
Dog Shit Sandwich, Rotunda,
Sid Vicious,
Scissor Sister,
The Dead Pet's fantastic, good party music.
X-Ray Specs,
Upstart, White Boss,
David Bowie,
VNV Nation,
Vumps Cut,
Seabound, A-Pop,
Gateki,
Penetration,
X-Ray Specs, Madness, The Jam,
the Purple Arts and the Rejects and that.
Icelandic band called Sigur Rós.
A band called The Blood.
I like the Libertines, I like them a lot.
I like The Fall,
Cold
Bartos,
There we go.
lots
David Bowie.
David Bowie. Selector was a very strong band for me.
Casualties, Unseen.
The Clash, yeah, right.
I love Queen as well. I don't know why I'm looking at the microphone.
I think it's great. There's something the music that's sort of 25 years old can appeal to, like, you know, young kids now, as long as they've got the right attitude for it. You know, it's not just the music, it was a whole, you know, attitude thing. It was a whole way of life.
All punk seems to have achieved is to have opened the doors for a new establishment who is the same as the old establishment.
You think about a year had passed, didn't you, looking at me now from that? That was still a very, 1979 to 81, it was a very, very exciting period because you had a lot of, on the after wave of punk, there was a lot of other waves breaking, and there was the whole mod thing coming through, two-tone, and then the oi stuff. And you could actually go out in London, you go out most places 5-6 nights a week and see lots of bands all the time, very, very energetic, very exciting, a lot of diversity of sounds. It was a tremendously exciting time to be writing about music. And I don't think you had a period this diverse and this exciting, and again until the mid-90s when Brit rock happened.
Well, I'm still sort of back where I was when I first met you, kind of thing. I'm still listening to like old 70s, you know, late 70s punk rock.
I'd become involved with the new music and interested in it, fascinated by it.
The film that you made in 81 was really, I suppose, about the deepening of punk. Punk revolutionised music. It brought it back to the crossroads where Johnson sold his soul to the devil. However, all punk could express was a simple emotion: fuck you. Sooner or later, it was going to need to express, with the same simplicity, purity and anger, more complex emotions, and that was the job initially of Joy Division, and then of U2, and then of post-punk.
As far as punk rock goes, I enjoyed the whole feeling of punk and the energy of punk. I thought a lot of the music was absolutely rubbish. But having said that, there was good music in it. Jake, certainly, Stiff Little Fingers, you know, they were on the same label as what we were.
Having not seen the film for 20 odd years, I noticed something that was running through the film, whether it was intentional or not, but was the violence that you had at gigs. That was something very big in the time. As Simon said, there was definite cults that basically fought each other.
Oh, it was violent time, there's no doubt about it. You got the gigs of fights, but I don't think it was any more violent than the Teddy Boys. I mean, the Teddy Boys were a very violent cult. You had the whole thing with the Notting Hill problems in the 50s. You say the hippies believed in peace and love, but look at Outnumman. Look at, you know, there was a lot of violence with the hippies and Grosvenor Square. And
it was fast, it was furious, it was violent, it was, some might say that it was big style, big life.
Back then, it was just seen as a reason to be violent, or there were gigs that were being trashed.
That particular social period in British history, it was, I think you really had to identify strongly. It maybe made those cults of the time, you know, maybe make it a bit more of a serious thing to belong to one or the other.
I mean, you used to get a lot of shit. Am I allowed to say that? I'm allowed to say shit. Okay, that's good. You used to get a lot of shit in those days, sort of thing, you know, with skinheads, Teddy Boys, you know, and that, mods, soul boys. We didn't like them, they didn't like us.
Unfortunately, the violence and youth movements go together hand in hand. maybe it's almost like a natural thing. You're trying to throw off the establishment of rules. You're trying to challenge what's been said and what is the accepted norms, and so you're going to fight back. And that's always been fighting in the street fighting, man. It's always been part of it.
There's different kind of, subcultures is what I'm kind of led to call them, but they don't war the way the mods and the rockers did and the punks and the skins did, and there's none of that. It's at best animosity.
The Oi thing come up, there was a review in one of these, it was like a real trendy music bit. It was more about like Marshall amps and all that, and they done a review and they said Stinky Turner, they said in between songs the only words he could muster was oi oi oi, and that's what we got. We said, oh, we'd do a song called oi oi oi, like it didn't matter, and then all of a sudden bang, there was this like big oi movement.
Yeah, I suppose I discovered it, yeah, and it was a big thing. But what it wasn't was a great right-wing conspiracy. It was nothing that exciting.
It never really was. We was just us.
Just product of our environment, weren't we?
Just snotty youths, really, you know.
The great thing about the Oi bands, or the second generation punk bands, is that they lit a fuse around the world that hadn't been lit by the pioneers. And the bands that went on to come through in the 90s in the States, who were tremendously important, like Green Day and like Rancid now, are very, very influenced by those bands. Far more so than The Clash or any of those bands. It was that was the knock-on effect of it. They lit the fuse that led to all those different explosions all around the world.
I think the actual two-tone experience was brilliant, and I think in the legacy of two-tone is the fact that people remember two-tone. Maybe they don't remember the individual bands that made up two-tone, but the actual symbolism of two-tone still means togetherness and still means that kind of cross-cultural acceptance. And that is a bit of a beacon, but and it shines quite brightly, I think, now, for anyone who wishes to see it.
The only politics I can think of that are based within punk are people's view that are not punk. They assume that we're just shouting about something. We want to be different for a reason. We're just being who we are.
But I'd say, out of everyone I know, 75% don't give a toss about politics.
The UK subs, the Damned, GBH, who aren't too heavy on their political thing, but they're very heavy on their kind of social thing.
I think I see punk as having more politics back then, but I was young and naive. There may not have been any politics whatsoever. I think people were just out to piss people off.
The way the band set on the Buzzcocks, the way they turn out banshees and the Superstar, the Clash, a bunch of wankers, bib.
The selling out thing, I know I slagged the Clash down a lot in the last one, didn't I, and that, but, well, I guess when you think of it, looking back and that, you've got to make some money to live, I suppose you could say I'm selling out by, having to charge, more money for old records kind of thing, but so maybe I should take that back on the Clash. They did what they wanted to do, and
selling out means losing the energy and the enthusiasm we had before, but it isn't to the older fans, the old people who were around 76. The energy's gone, the originality.
It's impossible to remember now that just 3 years earlier, in '78, the whole point of being an independent record label was to get your bands, because you were a manager, your band's records out, get them a reputation and sign them to a major. If we go back and look at it, the Clash hadn't just signed to CBS, the Clash were always on CBS, from London Calling from the very first moment. The Buzzcocks signed to United Artists in autumn 1977, the night Elvis Presley died. The Sex Pistols signed to every fucking major in the world.
It's ludicrous. I mean, if you read The Enemy in those days, that was the main gist. Every review, every interview, sellout came into the equation. What a ridiculous idea. What a ridiculous idea.
Selling out is just basically, using a group to sell a product.
I'm glad we don't have to really deal with that. We don't have to say, you write about corporates and then you join corporates. We've never been in that kind of position. So, but there are a lot of bands who have to kind of soul search, and I just tell them, look, think of all the guitars you can buy. I'd love to buy some good guitars, you know.
The bottom line is, if you're any good, you also want to get a record contract, and you want to play and communicate that message to as many people as humanly possible. So the whole idea of selling out always struck me as a nonsense anyway.
It's all so anachronistic now, and even the word selling out, people don't even talk about that anymore. And you think it's almost like a hangover from the hippie days, that people felt that if you were in a band and you were making money or you were signed to a major, and somehow you were negating everything you stood for, which was absolute nonsense.
In fact, if anything, I think that what's happened with the pop idols and people like that is that the record companies have shown themselves in pretty much their true colours, and that is the fact that the record business as such is the sellout here, not the bands. In so much as the record business used to claim that they were developing an artist, whereas now you just see them for the basic sort of wolves that they are. In so much as they'll take a young kid, milk him for what he or she's worth, and then just spit the thing out at the end of the day. You only have to look at what happened to the kids in Hearsay. I mean, I'm not a particular Hearsay fan. I don't particularly own any of their records. But I mean, they're obviously talented kids, and they were effectively given the chance by manipulative television and record company people to live a dream. And having been given that chance, they then find themselves being abused and spat at and attacked in the street. Well, they didn't deserve that, and that's only a consequence of the way that the industry has changed and the way the industry treats them. So I don't think that the idea of bands selling out is relevant anymore, and I never did. But I think that what's happened is that record companies have proven themselves to be the sellout.
Alright, if you can just sort of not push so hard in the front, because all these barriers are going to come down, and the poor people here are going to get fucking killed.
Well, certainly from our band's point of view, there's a lot of younger people coming along to the shows now, which is
the last tour we just done. It's incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah,
a lot of young kids there.
Which is very gratifying. And I think it's what we referred to as the Iggy Pop effect, and that's like whenever we started out, people like the Damned and stuff would name check Iggy and the New York Dolls and stuff as big influences.
I think we were the black sheep of punk or whatever, because we didn't wear the safety pins, we wore suits, but we still agreed with the main sentiment, basically.
Which was essentially do it yourself.
Yeah, anybody can do it, get up there. Yeah.
I think there was more punk than mod in our band, really. We was as you say, a new wave band that was coming out of punk that had a lot of punk influences.
Trying to play mod.
Yeah, I mean,
with the best of our abilities, which were, somewhat limited, being like 17
Well, that's
years
what
old.
Punk told you, that you do, you could do that. You could go out and do it.
Yeah, Punk said, form a band, cause a riot and upset your neighbours.
Well, there have been a lot of people who've credited me over the past few years with doing all kinds of marvellous things and helping this band and that band to escape from obscurity. And I suppose if I were to examine it, but I mean, how do you quantify these things? You really can't. My role is that a super fan and super consumer, if you want to be cynical about it, I suppose.
John Peel was something you had to stay up for. You had to listen to the radio. Even when I was homeless, I had a radio cassette player and I used to carry it around with me to just listen to John Peel and to record his Peel sessions. I was walking down the road and he played something good, the Peel sessions and that. I had to stop, to try and get the best signal on the radio cassette player and record those old sessions, because I mean they were the best. It was you had to listen to those radio sessions.
He kind of kick-started our career, really, and if any one person is kind of responsible for the UK subs' success in those days, it was John Peel, and we kind of did owe a lot to him.
Who knows what may happen next? I should hate to forecast it. I mean, the Radio Times just been asked me to forecast what happens in the 1980s, and I really avoided the issue, because it's the not knowing from which you derive the greatest pleasure.
The great beauty of it is you don't know what's going to come next. You just hope it's going to be as exciting as what's gone before, and we had a very barren time. Let's hope it's all changing again. I think it's the guitar-based band's coming through, and there's a bit of energy again.
I think we probably all would have sort of laughed out loud if you'd said to us then, you'll still be doing this in 25 years, Yeah. But it's just one of those things, it became what you did. And I think the reason that all the bands have had that longevity is because there was a definite honesty with the audience. I don't think that anybody was trying to play any sort of rock star games or put one over on the audience. I think that there was an integrity and an honesty in all of the bands that we represent that transmitted itself to the audience, and therefore the audience kind of bought into the whole thing. They became part of it.
Well, they're lucky, really, aren't they? Because, I mean, because of the crap they've got nowadays, you know, there's some good bands out there, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot of it's recycled at a point of no return now. You know, so what do? You go back, you know, like everyone does.
This is the third cycle of pop music. And the first was 56, second 63, third 76. But what happens now is not so much new styles come in, but that the musicians who have blossomed from the outsider music point of view and become major artists in their first couple of albums will now pursue another 3 albums in which they will develop and get better, and the music itself that is already around will get much better. And then it'll all go shit, and they'll all sell mega millions, and it'll all be crap, and then we wait for the next revival.
The revolution I see now, which is very odd for me, because I didn't used to like this kind of thing and don't understand it very much, it's as if British black music, which has been a pale copy of America for 20 years, is suddenly finding its own authentic voice. I would say that because I always love my own bands, but it's as if something is happening. So maybe that isn't the big revolution, but I do believe there's something happening out in British R&B.
So you're quite prepared to make a prediction for the next 22 years?
It's always going to happen. There's going to be another explosion of talent, and anything that involves people writing their own songs, getting up and going out and playing live and original songs to an audience, as opposed to being manufactured pop bands with Simon Cowell's endorsement, I think has got to be a good thing.
I took my daughter to see Britney Spears live, and it was quite. No, I don't give a fuck. It was quite a good show, but you know, it's manufactured. The band was fantastic, and she mimed. What more can you say?
This is a song called "She Grew Up." 1, 2, 3, 4.
Before somewhere I knew the face, but she had green spikes in her hair back in '78. Now the plastic pin liner skirt and the safety pins are given way to a zip pocket shirt and designer jeans. She said, I guess I grew up. I guess I grew up. You know how it goes. You know how it goes. Oh yes, I grew up, but I didn't grow. I met her looking for fun out on her own. Now she had a kid in a pram and a husband at home. But she got a hold of her life and she's taking a chance. She's in a job that she likes, yeah, and she still loves to dance. She said, I guess I grew up. I guess I grew up. You know how it goes. You know how it goes. Oh yes, I grew up, but I didn't grow. She said that she was just what she wanted to be, but she would never forget the way the music set her free, the way it set her free. I said, of course she grew up. Of course she grew up. 'Cause that's how it goes. That's how it goes. Oh yes, she grew up, but she didn't grow old. And we said, yeah, we grew up. Yeah, we grew up. 'Cause that's how it goes. That's how it goes. Oh yes, we grew up, but we didn't grow old, and we won't ever grow old.
Thank you.
I don't think violence is a specific side effect of that period. Hold on, let's rewind that. I don't think you can actually say, well, violence was more. Sorry, Dom. Hold on, mate. Let me have a think what I'm trying to say. Let me have a think what I'm trying to say.
Anything that's capturing a period of time looks better the later you watch it, the better it becomes, I think. That was really rubbish. That was pants.
Can you repeat that now? Why do you think the film's better now than it was 22 years ago?
I'm not sure, actually.
If I could look back, give up drinking earlier and don't do so many drugs.
Skunk and Nancy, Scissor Sister, bit of Kylie sometimes. Don't put that in though.
I love colours, so I dress for fun. I love dressing up.
Oh, interesting words. That's enough.
Cut that out.
It's my life. I'm doing something with my life that I want to do. You know, I'm not like having to go out on a Saturday night with no offence to you, but a bald head and a white shirt, looking dead trendy, trying to pick up a bird. You know what I mean? That's what they look like.
Well, they do. They do.
If that's their style of dress, it's fucking boring.
The only reason I have a bald head is because I'm fucking bald. You know, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
It definitely isn't the same today as it was then.
Where was that violence coming from?
I don't really know.
You know, was it something
Thatcher.
to do with...
Thatcher. They're great. It must be great for them because they can go to a mod club on a Monday and they can backcomb their hair and go, you know, wear a button down. On a Tuesday and go, let's go golf. Hair over the front, black shirt on, great.
Punk will never die.
Say it again.
Punk will never die.
I think it's quite good being Simon here tonight, actually, because if you look at that, it's basically it's Bob talking all the time.
Don't eat the pink microdots.
So, you know, but my wife went to get her hair done the other day, which she does now and then. And there was a girl, and she says, what music are you into? She says, punk, and she kind of said, well, what's punk? You know, what's that all about? But you couldn't explain it, but to wait, well, what's punk? That's today's generation, isn't it? Or kids. I hate kids. Put that on video. Oh, there's one.